little bit about both of their respective ministries and how we can be involved. Typically, if we have concluded with a benediction or a blessing or a prayer, tonight I kind of want to start with one. In the midst of everything that's transpiring right now with more racial violence and things that are going on in Wisconsin, with the political season upon us, in the midst of a pandemic that does not need to be mentioned, and there's a massive hurricane that is bearing down on the Gulf Coast, that there are going to be communities there around Lake Charles and towards the Gulf that will not be there in the morning by all predictions. So our hearts need to go out to them and be prayerful for each of these circumstances and situations. And somebody referred to it as Corona Coaster earlier in the week. I feel like we're living on a roller coaster right now with everything that's going on. So let's pause for a minute. I'll offer a word of prayer and then we'll begin. Oh God, we lift up our hearts, our voices to you, and we ask your blessings in each of these situations. God, we trust that you are intimately aware, intimately involved. And Lord, we just pray out your spirit upon each circumstance, each of the viruses that are plaguing us within our country, within our world. And so, God, tonight our hearts are heavy. We lift up these that we do not know personally, but we know that they're your children, and therefore they are our brothers and sisters. So we pray and lift them up, asking your blessings upon them. Thank you for the opportunities that you provide for us to be the hands and feet of Jesus right here in our community. And I thank you for what we will share and learn tonight. And I give you thanks in the strong name of Jesus the Christ. Amen.
Amen.
Ed, alphabetically, you come before Jim. So how about you start us off, Ed?
Okay, well, the first thing I'd like to do, if Melissa is ready, is to show us a little video that we have about the Renovation Alliance. And then I'll talk a little bit about it.
All right, y'all, don't be scared. Your screens are about to change.
Okay.
We've lived here about 27 years. We moved in with my husband's parents because they were elderly and needed some help.
I left home when I was 12 years old, and I never really had any home. And when I found this place, I fell in love with it. I just don't want to leave.
This house was built in 1900. I came to this address when I was the age of 12. Living here was so happy. I graduated in this area. I left and went north to New York and New Jersey. I decided to come back to the house that I live in because my mother got sick. Therefore, she couldn't keep it up. Also, oh my goodness, I need a lot of work done on this because during the years, by my mother being sick, nobody took care of the house. The roof was leaking, the paint was peeling off, the awnings was falling down, and I was taping the windows to keep the draft out.
I got real sick. My daughter put me in the hospital. I was gone for 3 years, a year in the hospital, and 2 years convalescent. When I come back, the whole house was just totally stripped. Had holes in the roof. About a year and a half ago, the well went out. A lot of people I knew were really upset because I didn't have any water. How do you live without water? One day at a time.
It was a steady rain, and so it just kept coming and coming. And we were using buckets and towels and whatever we could use. It was on the floor, it was everywhere. You know, I mean, there was no way to keep it out because it was just, this roof was, it was so rotten up in here. My kitchen counter was just falling apart. I didn't have any money to fix it. It's hard managing alone.
When there are two people that might be aged and they're able to support each other with Social Security, and then one of them may pass away, it's very difficult for the other one to maintain their property on just a single Social Security. So what happens is that a lot of times the roof will begin to deteriorate, and the roof leads to leaks, and leaks inside the house lead to other problems. So lots and lots of our problems begin with roof leaks.
The Renovation Alliance helps to fill those gaps for people that need home repairs but cannot get funding from the government and cannot prepare the funding for themselves. The things that Renovation Alliance does is a tremendous blessing to people because there's no one else there to do it.
Renovation Alliance was very, very helpful. They painted this house within a matter of 3 to 4 days. It was a leak in one bedroom, very bad when it rained hard. So Renovation Alliance came in and they fixed that. Now I have beautiful windows. I can let them up and I can let them down, and they did a beautiful job.
The roof was leaking, so it was tearing the ceiling out in my bathroom. It was coming through the light in my bedroom closet, and it ruined most of my clothes and got mildew on the house. So they put a new roof on it, and they put in a new well for me, an all new pipe, put in a new pressure tank and a filter system. It's doing real good. Renovation Alliance was a godsend to me. If I could have jumped up and down, I would have jumped up and down.
I just feel like I'm so fortunate to have found them, because there's no way I could have gotten a new roof. There's no way. And they came out and just took everything out and put this beautiful new cabinets and countertop. I was so tickled. And a new sink. I feel good when I go in there. You know, it's nice and clean, and I didn't have that before. They're angels. We all need angels.
Well, I always say it's an opportunity to help a lot of folks that cannot help themselves. In doing so, we rely heavily on volunteers. Volunteers are the lifeblood, actually, of Renovation Alliance.
It makes me feel great because I know that someone's life will be benefited and will be improved and perhaps even prolonged because their home is made warm, safe, dry, and healthy for them. It's just the way a community should work, where a community will thrive, and the way people should behave one to another. If you're looking to volunteer, it's a great program to work with.
I remember when we first started in 1998, 99, we did 4 houses, and we really thought we'd set the world on fire. But now it's not uncommon for us to end a season with 130 or so projects completed. And if one house or 2 houses changes a life, that's wonderful. If it changes a neighborhood, it's even better. If it changes a community as a whole, then that's our goal.
Oh, it changed my life. I'm not stressed out. I feel more safe. I'm proud of my house.
It's made one big difference in my life. It's 100% better. I think it's going to be a good life, really good life, thanks to Renovation Alliance.
I'm just so thankful that I got a hold of these wonderful angels. It's a godsend. Southwest Virginia is so lucky to have Renovation Alliance. There's just so many people out there that need help.
Well, I think most of the people that are here tonight have already heard something about Renovation Alliance, even though throughout the throughout the area we're frequently unknown. people haven't really heard of us. But let me give you, we love that video, and we love those three homeowners that were so gracious in letting us film them and talk about what we've done with their homes. But let me just quickly go through a kind of a description. I'm looking at this group that's here, and many of you have worked as volunteers with Renovation Alliance. I think every time we've had a project, Anita has been there. I think she's a 100% volunteer, and several others of you have helped. But Renovation Alliance was previously known as Christmas in April, and then it was known as Rebuilding Together, and that was when we were part of a national organization. We, a few years ago, decided that we really wanted to concentrate all of our funding and all of our efforts right here in this area. And so we became an independent nonprofit. We're dedicated to the repair and renovation of the homes of low-income, many elderly and disabled homeowners. Over the past 22 years, we've made repairs, significant repairs. I think we're getting close to 1,500 homes that we've repaired. And we cover Roanoke City, the city of Salem, Roanoke County, Franklin County, Botetourt County, Craig County, and Floyd County. We've done everything, as you saw with some of that video: new roofs, new HVAC systems, electrical and plumbing upgrades, structural work, accessibility improvements. We've built lots and lots of accessible ramps. Done energy efficient improvements. I don't know how many replacement windows we've installed, and just whatever people need. We do that with volunteer workers. We do that with contractors who usually give us reduced rates. We get donations of materials. We get grant funding. We do get some federal funding, and we get corporate sponsorships. And as Kenny Rogers, one of our long-term volunteers, said in that video, the goal is to ensure that the homes of these folks are warm, safe, dry, accessible, and healthy. We now have, after many years of being mostly volunteer and a couple of part-time employees, for the past several years, we've had 2 full-time employees. We have an executive director whose name is Ellie Rigby, and we have a project coordinator named Adam Sanderson. Those are full-time employees. And then we have several part-time employees, including myself, Roger Vest, who you saw in the video, and some of you already know Roger, and Lindsay McKinnon and Steve Grandis are 2 people that help with the administrative and development work. And then we have we're governed by a very, very active board of directors. Many, I could list those names, and many of them would be people you know. But I'm not going to go through all of that. But they are a very active board of directors. We don't have board members who just are there for name only. We have several big events. Our big event, which some of you have participated in, is Renovation Day on the last Saturday in April. We've done that every year for 22 years until this year. And of course, we did not have Renovation Day this year. We generally on that day now do somewhere between 30 and 40 homes just on that one day with volunteer groups from businesses, churches, civic groups, contractors, and just a variety of folks. Funding comes from grants and from corporate donors, from businesses, churches, and foundations, and a variety of sources. During spring break, and I know many of you are familiar with this, we host college groups who come here and spend the week. And where do they generally spend the week? In the MAC. At Grandin Court in the MAC. We've had college groups from everywhere from Maine to Florida coming and spending a week. We've had one group from Southern Illinois at Edwardsville who has been here, I think, 5 consecutive years. And those kids give up their spring break, they fund themselves, and they come here and they work for a week. During the summer, normally, not this summer, but normally we also host the several youth work groups. There's a group called Catholic Heart, which is made up of Catholic kids. Group work camps, which is a mixture of a variety of church groups. And then we've done for, I don't know, 15 or 16 years, a group called, many of you may have heard of, called World Changers. And that's a Baptist organization. And this year, when the COVID hit, they not only canceled, but they pretty much disbanded. So we won't have World Changers anymore. But, and some of you may have heard this, BGAV has a program every summer called Impact Virginia. And Impact Virginia next summer will be here in Roanoke. So we will be using the kids from all over Virginia. And then the other thing we do in the fall, we hold a veterans work day where we usually do 10 or 12 projects that are dedicated to the homes of veterans or surviving spouses of deceased veterans. We've done that for several years now, and some of you, I think, have helped with that program as well. And then we repair homes throughout the year using a variety of work groups and different funding sources. For example, today, the group from Cave Spring Methodist Church, who helps us frequently, built a ramp, an accessible ramp in Salem today. And I lost count. I don't know how many accessible ramps we've built, but Roger Vest, who works with us, has devised the system where we build the components of handicap ramps in our warehouse and stock them there. And then when it's time to build one, we bring out the variety of how many units we need, and we build those, we assemble them on site. We've also done some of those aluminum metal ramps that were donated to us, and we've installed those in a lot of places as well. That's kind of a summary of the things that we do. We're still pretty low key. We often get confused with, as Jim's going to tell you about, Habitat for Humanity, who also does wonderful work. And we partner with Habitat on several occasions. But it's always interesting to me, everybody's heard of Habitat, but a lot of people have not heard of Renovation Alliance. So anytime we get a chance to talk about renovation, we're happy to do it. All of us are happy to do that. So that's enough from me. If you've got any questions, like I said, most of you have been involved before. But if you have any questions, I'll be happy to try to answer them.
We'll hold questions till the end. I want to transition to Jim, but maybe because y'all keep changing your name, Ed, is the reason nobody knows who you are.
That's part of it. Yes, that's
Renovation is in the witness protection program.
That's right.
Thanks, Ed. We'll come back to you with questions. Jim, you're up.
Okay. I want to say this about Renovation Alliance. They work with the poorest of poor, which Habitat does not. The people that are in the Habitat program for housing have to be able to afford the mortgage for the houses that we build. So they have to have income either from jobs or Social Security. So we're not reaching down to the poorest of the poor like Ed's group Renovation Alliance often does. Habitat is a Christian-based organization, and it's worldwide because of the efforts of our former president, Jimmy Carter. He didn't found the organization, but he did bring it, expand it across the United States and then across the world. Each Habitat group, like I work with the Habitat for Humanity in the Roanoke Valley, and that's a separate organization. And there's also a Habitat for Humanity in Christiansburg. And we pretty much limit our work to Roanoke City. We have worked in Roanoke County, but they don't necessarily welcome Habitat homes. We've gone as far as Buchanan or Franklin County in some cases, but very rarely. Most of our work is centered in Roanoke City. Habitat for Humanity builds about 10 or 12 houses a year. And since I've been working with them, maybe the past 8 years, they have built houses that fit well into the community. For new houses, they have blueprints for 2-story homes, 1.5-story homes, single-story homes. And we also do renovations. And when we do a renovation, we'll take an old house that's been abandoned or it's been donated or sold for the taxes due, and we strip it down to the studs, remove all the old electric and plumbing, and so oftentimes, more often than not, we rearrange the interior because older homes oftentimes just had 1 bathroom, and Habitat normally builds 1.5 bath or 2 bath homes. All Habitat homes have front porches and back decks. So it's difficult to tell a Habitat home now from the neighboring homes, other than the fact that they might have new paint. It's hard to recognize them. It serves, Habitat for Humanity serves immigrants, single mothers, disabled families, and low-income families. And the families that are brought into the program have to volunteer, provide 400 volunteer hours before they get into their home. And they're in the program for about 2 years before they have their home. So during that time, they're schooled in finances and housekeeping and a few other things that I'm not terribly familiar with because I'm just a volunteer and I hold a hammer. Is there any questions so far? I've kind of run out of information.
That's great, Jim. And I think both of these organizations practice the theology of the hammer. And I think that's why we are interested in hearing from you and the opportunities. If Kessler is still there and I can see her face, make sure that she's not eating. Thank you. We received a letter recently with an apostle build, and Grandin Corps has been involved with Habitat many years ago. We've been involved more recently with Renovation Alliance, and we're looking at possibility of our mission endeavors to do this. The apostle letter or the apostle build is going to involve churches throughout the Roanoke Valley, and we can choose to participate and take volunteer teams and work for a day or several days. And I think it will include everything from once the footers and all of the things are poured, then going in and building from there on up till it's turnkey. So that might provide some opportunities as well. Is that correct, Melissa?
I can speak to that a little bit more, Kevin, if that's all right.
Yeah, that's great.
Go for it.
The apostle build involves many of the churches in the Roanoke Valley, and they contribute money, and there's no set amount. It's just whatever they can give. And they contribute their time to help build the house. And this year, or that is in the year 2021, the apostle build is going to start in February, and they'll put up a foundation on a lot yet to be determined. And from that point on, volunteers will work on it from March through the middle of June. And the house will be dedicated probably at the end of June. So, and during that time, a lot of the churches volunteer labor towards the building of the apostles' house.
Questions that you have for Jim or for Ed? Sherry, you had a question and I cut you off. I'm sorry.
I'm unmuting. No, that's okay. Well, I had never heard, I heard from Habitat. My sister actually works for Habitat for Humanity. She is the, she's the cashier in the Restore. So that's one way that they get money to fund their ministry as well, right, Jim? Through the Restore?
Yes.
And, but I was going to say, I had never heard of, I am one person who had never heard of Renovation, I didn't want to say it, Renovation, until I talked with Melissa Kessler when I came on to the staff. And I really, 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 really like what you do. I mean, it's, because I know there's a lot of people, I know as a single woman in a house, you know, some of the church has a small jobs committee. And so I've had, a peephole put in my door, and Josh fixed my kitchen sink. So, I mean, it's really nice for you to do that. I mean, I have little things, but I can't imagine, you know, I mean, I've got funds coming in, so I can't imagine not being able to take care of my home. And so I really, really think that's wonderful. And I've always supported Habitat for Humanity. They do wonderful work as well. In fact, I worked on a woman's build one time, and I was hitting my fingers more than I was hitting the nails. So I started to sing and entertain, and they seemed to like that. So didn't get much building done myself, but anyway, that's my, yeah, that's right. That's my 2 cents worth. But I just wanted to say I learned a lot from you, Ed, about what that
Experience.
One of the nice things about Habitat, there's a lot of women that help, and like me, I am a total klutz with a hammer, but I can be a gopher, I can clean up, I can paint, I can do other things, you know, so I hope that we can get the women involved as well as the men when we do this.
Ed, I had a question for you about the Renovation Alliance. I know that you guys, there's probably way more need than you can your organization can provide. How do you go about choosing which projects you're going to work on?
We have what the members of the board and some of the staff members form a house selection committee. We send out application forms to anybody who asks for an application form, and then we have a meeting of our house selection group. And we have a rating system that we use, and there are, I don't know, probably 15 to 20 points at which we rate the application. One of them is, of course, income. The lower the income, the higher the points. Another is critical need. A roof, of course, rates a lot higher than the fact that the house needs painting. If there are children in the home, if the homeowner is elderly, there's a whole host of these ratings that we go through, and then we rank all of the houses according to the ratings, and then we start doing them from the top of the list, the ones that are rated highest. The other factor that comes in is funding. Sometimes we have funding that is dedicated for a certain group. We get funding from the Federal Department of Agriculture, for example, that's only good in rural areas. We get CDBG, Community Development Block Grant funding through, from the feds through the city that's only good in the city. So we've gotten other grants that are only good for elderly people. We've gotten grants that are only good for homes that have children in the home. So between the two things, we balance the rating and we balance what funding sources we have. And from there, we start working on the houses that we have. we're still doing some, as I said, some projects most of our projects have really been slowed down this year because of the COVID. But we have put in place some volunteer guidelines, and I helped with another handicap ramp a couple weeks ago, and we all wore our masks, and we all stayed 6 feet apart, and we all used the same tools and didn't share tools, and we went through that whole deal and still managed to build a handicap ramp. But we are really looking forward to getting back into full swing, hopefully next year. February sounds like a great idea, Jim. I hope that'll work.
Habitat, COVID, the way they work with COVID too, volunteers really make an appointment to volunteer. We have currently 4 building sites, and there's probably 40 to 50 members of the what I call the permanent volunteer group. They call them builders clubs. They're mostly retired people like myself that volunteer on a very regular basis. And so we sign up for certain days at certain sites, and they limit the number of people at each site to 6. So, and of course we have to wear masks and keep social distancing and wash our hands and do all the things that are consistent with good COVID behavior. So that's the routine now, and I'm sure I would love it if we could have larger groups working on the site that would move along much faster. But they have increased the number of work days available to the volunteers too, to try and smooth things out. It used to be just 2 days a week that were build days, but now there's as many as 4 days a week. So the work is spread out over more days.
And it's interesting, Jim, some of the very same people that are in the builders clubs also are some of our volunteers. So they're working in both programs.
Wow. Awesome.
Jim, I do have a question for you. You'd mentioned that the people that receive your homes have to get a mortgage to pay for them. Do they have to get approved for that mortgage before you even start on the home, or does
I'm not
Habitat?
sure about that, Greg, but I do know that the people who are qualified for these homes have 2 mortgages. The first mortgage is for the cost of the home, and the second mortgage is for the difference between the cost and the market value of the home. So if the people in the program decide to sell it before the first mortgage is paid off, they're liable for the second mortgage as well.
So the first mortgage, at least, I'm not sure about the second one, but the first one is through Habitat itself. Okay. So they're paying back Habitat. Mm-hmm. And that then funds more work, right, for Habitat to be able to do. The second mortgage, I would assume, would be through the bank. But
okay.
Okay.
That's
well, that's beyond my knowledge. So,
well, I just know it was in the letter that I got. I asked for some more details about things, and that was actually just one of the things that they explained. Right. So that's the only reason I know that part.
Thank you.
And Greg, just to add what little experience that I have had with Habitat, Jim mentioned the 400 hours that they have to work on site. That sweat equity that they put into the building gives them their investment. This is their home, this is their buy-in. And so they're expected to be there to help when the crews are there, because it is their home. It gives them a sense of ownership because they've contributed to the work.
And I'll pull this up as well. They're actually required to attend a class for a year before their house is begun, and they're required to work on someone else's house as well before their house is done. So there's a lot more to it too than just even their own home.
They can put in their 400 hours of volunteer time in a number of different ways.
Yes.
And it involves the whole family, not just the head of the family or whoever's made the application. So oftentimes you'll have the children and the mother and father all putting in volunteer hours. And we get to know the families when we're working on their site. So, you know, we get to know them pretty well.
Yeah.
So they dedicate the houses.
Yes, and the houses are, when it's finished, they're all dedicated by Habitat for Humanity. They hold a dedication ceremony, usually on the front porch, so that volunteers can all attend the dedication. So there's quite a crowd usually at the dedication when they turn over the keys to the family.
Yeah, I will say that one of the things that we do require from homeowners, if there are able-bodied members of the household, or if they have offspring that are able to come and work and volunteer, we do require that. It's fairly unusual for so many of these folks are elderly ladies living on their own, and there is no one. But we have had some pretty good help from family members, and we do require that when they're available.
And even when they come out and do physical work, they take care of us when we're on the site. We love them.
Yeah, we've got some good food from homeowners.
Ed, who founded Renovation Alliance?
Well, like I said, it started out in a little small town in Texas and it was called Christmas in April because there was a group of volunteers that went out and repaired a lady's house during the month of April, and she said, "This is just like Christmas in April." We loved that title, and we became one of the groups. There were when we joined, there were about, I think, 40 or 50 around the country. And then new national leaders came on the scene, and they didn't like that title, and they changed the title to Rebuilding Together. And it's probably still headquartered in Washington, D.C. And so we stayed with that title for a while, and then we realized that we were sending more money and dues and other things to Washington than we were getting in return. And I don't mean to downgrade anybody. They Rebuilding Together, still working in a variety of cities around the country, and are doing good work. But we just felt like we were able, I think it's been about 5 years that the board here, we had a study group to decide whether we wanted to break away, and if so, what we would do. It was interesting at that time, we spent a lot of time with Karen Mason, who's the director of Habitat for Humanity, and we came very, very close to merging with Habitat at that point. And I think for a variety of reasons, it just didn't quite happen. And we continue to be an independent nonprofit, but we partner with a lot of other nonprofits here in town, including Habitat, who we love. Great folks there.
So basically, y'all start practicing working with tools, because we're going to be building a house next year, and you need to be ready.
Just don't give me a hammer.
No hammers for you, Sherry.
Hammers.
We got speakers and phones, and you can run around dancing.
I can do that, yeah.
Painting, you know, things without hammers.
I had no clue what you're saying. Speak up, I didn't hear you.
Oh, sorry. I said, make sure you guys are ready. We're going to be building houses next year.
Yay, okay.
I mean, we've been doing renovation day for before I got here.
Yeah.
And like my first weekend here, we did a build out in Fincastle, I think.
No, it was over in Newcastle.
Newcastle, sorry, one of
Yeah.
the castles.
Mhm, over in Craig County. Yeah.
So fancy down here in Southwest Virginia.
We put you and Kevin to work out there on that.
Yeah, you did. It was a great day. Bill Bain hands me a saw, and I'm like, okay. Great.
We really
Let me have this all.
This build in February to June.
Say that again, Judy.
This apostle build, are we gonna really go in for this apostle build?
So
next year?
Missions Council, so a lot of you that are actually on this call are on Missions Council as well. We're going to be meeting in the next couple of weeks to discuss like actual scheduling, but yeah, that's the plan that I'm kind of thinking of right now. Yes.
Good.
Wonderful.
Yep.
I love the story that Millard Fuller told. I got to hear him speak at a General Assembly with CBF back in the 90s. And we were actually doing a build there in Greensboro. We, my pastor and the other associate and I drove down to Greensboro and helped with the house. But that night, Millard Fuller tells the story about Jimmy Carter and Rosalind Carter, who were working on a particular house in a neighborhood. And he went over to see after the house had been completed just to kind of follow up with the family. And there was a little boy that was playing out in the front yard. So he pulls up, rolls down his window, and says, "Who lives here?" That little boy just beamed with pride, and he said, "That's my house." And he said, "Well, do you have any idea who helped build your house?" The little boy looked back at him and said, "Yes, I do. Jesus built my house."
Oh. I love it.
And that's what we're doing. We're being the hands and feet of Jesus.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
Is Renovation Alliance doing their thing next year in April, or?
That's certainly the plan. Last Saturday in April would be the plan, and we're always looking for volunteers and for sponsorship money. So if you know anybody who wants to participate in either of those ways, we're always ready.
So watch out for lots of opportunities to be involved in building work.
Even though this is mostly construction work, it's God's work.
Absolutely.
And how long have you been associated with renovation?
Since it started.
Wow. Which is?
22 years.
22 years. That's pretty good. And Jim, you've been with Habitat for a long time.
Yeah, since 2004.
Yeah. See,
I love it.
There's stories about Jim I've heard.
Oh, ho, ho.
No, it's all good. I'm messing with you, Jim. Sorry. But everybody knows who Jim Edgel is at Habitat.
Any other questions?
Well, I came in kind of late, and I apologize for that. I was just going to ask Jim, how is the property? How is it obtained, or do you know what I'm trying to say? You have to have the property first to build the houses on, and so do you get a listing of what land is available?
They buy it. They buy the property.
Oh, Habitat does.
Habitat buys the property.
Oh, okay. And then you all just look for it through real estate ads or?
Through various sources.
Uh-huh.
I would imagine zoning and a lot of clearance from city government has to be approved and everything, Jim?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it used to be years ago when, before I started working at Habitat, Jack Russell said that Habitat volunteers did everything, including the electric and the plumbing and the roofing and all of those things. But the city of Roanoke has subsequently made Habitat use licensed plumbers and licensed electricians for all of that kind of work. And when I first started working for Habitat in 2004, all the people, including the leaders of the building groups, were all volunteers. They called them team leaders. But
several years later, maybe 2005 or 2006, they started hiring people as foremen who were employees of Habitat to oversee the building using the volunteers. So now they have 4 foremen, one of whom is supervising foreman. So they can build 4 houses at a time using Habitat employees to oversee the work.
I want to say a word of thanks to both Ed and Jim for being willing to share with us and kind of bring us up to date. And looking forward, once the COVID cloud has cleared, say that 3 times fast, once we can begin to do hands-on stuff as church, that we continue to be missional in this vein, in this effort. And as we say across the street and around the world, this is literally across the street with the work that we're doing. Let me give you a quick commercial and let you know this is the last Wednesday colloquy for the summer, and I want to say thank you to each of you for making the time and making this a good gathering place for us. I'm grateful for each of the speakers that have volunteered their time to join us, and it's been pretty cool. They've been all over the country and as far away as Germany and Puerto Rico, so that's been really neat, and I'm grateful for them for having done that. Following, we'll take the week off next Wednesday because that will be the week before Labor Day, the first Wednesday in September. We'll take that off. Then the following Wednesday, I'm going to pick up with a Bible study gathering. We'll announce the time, 7:30, with time changes and everything. We may bump it back to 7 p.m. To start at 7. And what I'm going to be doing in the month of September and the first Sunday in October is kind of unpacking the material that we'll be covering in worship. So in September, beginning as we try to regather, we're going to be looking at the 5 purposes of the church again, and what that looks like in the midst of where we are in our world today. And so my sermons won't be nearly as long as I have taken, I won't say afforded the opportunity, I've taken the opportunity to preach a little longer online, because I know y'all can get up and go to the potty, or you can go get another cup of coffee or whatever. So, but because of the limited time, and we want to be respectful of getting people in and out of the building, we'll unpack what we talk about on Wednesday night, and that way I can go in further depth and it'll be more of a teaching opportunity. We'll be talking about worship, evangelism, discipleship, fellowship, ministry, and mission, and we'll be revisiting those, the Pentagon of Purpose, as we've called it before. I'm going to hand off to Kessler and let her tell you what she's incubating.
So we're looking on Thursday, so not to be on the same day as the debrief and continued conversations about Sunday's topic, but on Thursdays we will be watching The Chosen together, which is an independently funded series that's been on YouTube, or you can go to thechosen.tv. It's also available there. It's the story of the life of Jesus and the people around him in his early ministry. So it goes pretty solidly with what's in the Bible, and with some creative license to add in context and historical things about what would it look like around him at the wedding at Cana? What would it look around him as the children are coming to him? What does it look like around him? And bring some life to it. So we'll be having conversations through that. Right now, I'll send out the links and things beforehand. You can watch it on your own, or come an hour before. We'll watch it together, and then everyone join at a different time, probably watching together at 6 and discussion starting at 7. So you could do it either way, whatever works best for you. But it's come up in conversation here with a couple different people. So we're just going to dive right into it and go for it.
So both of these things will still be Zoom, is that correct? The Wednesday and the Thursday thing, right? Just clarifying.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, gang. Appreciate you. Thanks for joining us tonight.
Thanks, Jim. Thanks, Ed.